Today we're headed down the Pacific coastline to a little beach community called Orange County on Garage Movie Reviews. Hello and welcome to Garage Movie Reviews, the show where I review all the movies in my collection right here from my garage, because those movies are currently in boxes right behind me. I'm Levi, the Garage Movie Guy, and today we're talking about Orange County. When I was in high school, I had aspirations of being a writer, much like the protagonist of today's story. But that's pretty much where the similarities end. I didn't grow up in an affluent beach community, I wasn't an avid surfer, and I wasn't looking to get into Stanford. But as an aspiring writer, this movie did make an impression on me, and it also helped that one of my favorite songs is used for the opening credits. That song is Shadow Stabbing by Cake, and it's very appropriate because it's a song about writing. That's what initially drew me in, but the elements that really held me were the comedic timing in this film and the comedy icons that fill this cast. For instance, Shaun's mother is played by Catherine O'Hara.
I look like a piñata!
AKA Kevin McAllister's mom in the first two Home Alone movies. Which, side note, if you're a fan of Catherine O'Hara, do yourself a favor and check out the Canadian TV series Schitt Creek. It's produced by Eugene Levy and his son Dan Levy, and it is hilarious. It's about an affluent family who falls on hard times and has to live in a small town. But anyway, back to the cast of Orange County. We have John Lithgow as Shaun's dad, Lily Tomlin as the school counselor, Chevy Chase as the principal, as well as brief appearances by the late Gary Marshall and Harold Ramis.
You're my same height. That is neat.
Orange County stars Colin Hanks as Shaun Brumder, a typical California teen who loves surfing and extreme sports. But when his friend dies in a tragic surfing accident, he's forced to examine his life. And when he's sitting on the beach, totally cogitating, he finds a book in the sand. The book is a novel by Marcus Skinner, who's played later in the movie by another famous face, but I'll let that be a surprise. Shaun becomes obsessed with this novel and his own writing. He makes it his goal to be accepted into Stanford so that he can study under Professor Skinner. His grades are good enough, and he should be a shoo-in.
You are a shoo-in.
But his inept guidance counselor mixes up his transcript with Shane Brainerd, who happens to be one of the worst students on campus.
You guys, I got into Stanford. Ooh. I applied as a joke and they let me in.
Shaun proceeds to do anything he can to get into Stanford. He appeals to alumni, he talks to his parents, and when none of that works, he goes into crisis mode. It's then that his girlfriend, played by Skylar Fisk, and his burnout brother, played by Jack Black, in his underwear,
Oh, there it is.
they both step in to help him. Much of the comedy in this film comes directly from writer Mike White, who cut his teeth on TV shows like Dawson's Creek and Freaks and Geeks. And while a lot of Jack Black's lines may seem ad-libbed, they were all written by Mike White. He just happened to be Jack Black's neighbor, and since this movie, he's written two Jack Black vehicles, School of Rock and Nacho Libre. The director, Jake Kasdan, son of legendary screenwriter and director Lawrence Kasdan, had worked previously with Mike White on the TV series Freaks and Geeks. When he read the script for Orange County, he fell in love. He wanted to fill the cast with a lot of big names in comedy, and in order to do this, he sent out copies of the script along with a love letter explaining to the person why he loved their work and why he wanted them in the movie. And apparently this worked pretty well because the first actor he got to sign up for the movie was Lily Tomlin. In what I think is a very fun casting decision, Kasdan put Mike White in the role of Mr. Burke, Shaun's barely literate English teacher.
Got your story here, Shaun. Wow. I noticed you used a lot of big words. Nice. Good for you. It was a little long, so I didn't read the whole thing, but who cares because I gave you an A.
Being partially produced by MTV Films, the movie has a lot of popular music in it. But to get that authentic California beach feel, Kasdan leaned heavily on Brian Wilson music. For the original music on this film, Kasdan brought in Michael Andrews, a name you might not recognize, but just a year before this, Andrews and Gary Jules recorded a cover of the Tears for Fears song Mad World for the movie Donnie Darko. One interesting aspect about this movie called Orange County is that it wasn't even filmed in Orange County. Because of labor laws, they were required to film in Los Angeles and Malibu. The school exteriors were shot at an actual high school, Diamond Ranch. Now, I've always thought that the architecture of this school was really cool and sort of futuristic, and interestingly enough, in my research, I found that two separate films have used this high school to invoke that sort of futuristic architecture. First was the 2000 sci-fi thriller The Cell, and the other was Serenity, the 2005 follow-up movie to the short-lived cult classic series Firefly. And one last name that deserves to be mentioned when speaking about the comedy in this film is Tara Timpone, the editor. Timpone and Kasdan had worked before on, you guessed it, Freaks and Geeks. Thanks, Judd Apatow. And the editing stands out to me. I myself am an editor, and I feel like Kasdan and Timpone really use the licensed tracks as well as the original music very well in the comedic moments.
We just gave the Dean of Admissions 3 hits of...
Orange County is not a perfect movie, and it's not really for everyone, but it does hit me in a very personal place. When I was in high school, I didn't have as many external forces trying to stop me from going to college like Shaun did, but I did feel separate from everyone else, which is a feeling I think everyone has as a teenager. But one way I dealt with that was writing. And I think that's why this movie speaks to me in a way beyond just being a comedy. But I keep coming back to this movie, not just for that feeling, but for the laughs. So finally, who's gonna enjoy this movie? Well, if you're an English major, you should probably watch this movie. I think you would understand some of the struggles that Shaun is having, and if you're like me and went to put pen to paper, writing prose or poetry to deal with your feelings in the past, you might get something out of this movie. Or if bands like Lit, Social Distortion, Foo Fighters, or The Offspring were part of your formative years, then you might get a kick out of this movie. And there's one song in particular, I'm not gonna play it. If you heard that chord, you know what song I'm talking about. It's used pretty effectively as a gag in the movie over and over. And last, if you're just a fan of comedy, you should check this movie out. Clever writing, sharp editing, and great performances, what's not to love? But hey, that's just my take. I want to know what you think. Have you seen Orange County? Did you like it? Did you hate it? If my review got you interested in seeing the movie, let me know down below, and after you watch it, come on back, let me know how it was. But until next time, I'm Levi, the Garage Movie Guy. When he's sitting on the beach, totally cottagey. I'm gonna start sweating. They were required to film in Los Alamos, and Malibu. Oh. I'm gonna call that a wrap.